Welcome to Terminal 234. Faye doesn't want to welcome you guys.
Oh, sorry. I didn't even realize that
I
you
literally
actually
said,
did it.
let me start recording.
Sorry. Okay. Well, I still want to say it, so I'm going to say it. Welcome back to Terminal 234, guys. It's Faye on the mic with...
What's up? This is your other host. This is Dolapo. We are happy to be with you today. Terminal 234.
I need to get out of the habit of saying on the mic. There's no mic in front of me.
Yeah, and I was also going to tell you that you should stop saying on the mic, and you should stop saying...
That's what I'm saying.
Like, just... no. Wait. I don't know. I don't like it.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for letting everybody know you don't like it on
this is how things get
audio.
Fixed, you know? Just
fine.
One day you just fed up.
I want to know
like,
if the audience has an issue with it, but if you have an issue with it, I guess it's enough for me to stop. It's going to be hard to get out of the habit, though. You should have said something earlier. Like, I'd be telling you on the spot. I tell you on site, and then you switch up. But no, you got to wait. How many months have we been doing this? How many months have I been doing that?
I just try to let you live and do what you do, you know.
Whatever.
But
okay.
we should talk about some stuff that's going on. We don't have beef, but some people have beef out there. Apparently, you were just telling me.
I was just telling you about French Montana / Kendrick Lamar / Young Thugger. The thing is, Kendrick Lamar and French Montana are the subject of the beef, but they aren't really even beefing. I don't think Kendrick Lamar has said a word when it came to this whole situation. But for some background here. French Montana basically said he has more hits than Kendrick to the extent that he would kill a festival stage more than Kendrick Lamar. I think what he was trying to say is that I have more commercial hits. He definitely made sure to say, I'm not saying I'm a better rapper than Kendrick Lamar. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying I have more hits, commercially than Kendrick Lamar, which after you do some fact checking, isn't even really fully true. I think he might have more club bangers, we know Pop That and the like. Mm-hmm. But in terms of just hits, he has Unforgettable, whatever. But Kendrick has.
That's not a whatever. But
I mean, yeah. No. I'm sorry. I'll put some respect on that song because it's an amazing song. But what I mean to say is that Kendrick Lamar has plenty songs that have gone platinum that weren't quote unquote hits. You know what I'm saying? So. He can also kill a festival stage just as much, but I get French's, sentiment. Mm-hmm. What do you have to say about that part of this whole beef?
Well, I definitely understand his sentiment. I think that it depends on so many things. First of all, what are we calling a hit? Because you already said hit, but then you said a commercial hit, you know what I mean? So there's so many different ways of defining it. Mm-hmm. To me, on face value, I would say French Montana has a case. Without actually doing any research, I would think he might be really close, if not more. He's right there with them. If you think of Kendrick Lamar, huge songs, what are the huge hits that you're thinking of? You know what I mean? You're thinking of the drinking one, swimming pools, whatever it was called.
Yeah, and then the one from Damn, the one about stretch marks DNA? On her ass. No.
I know what you're talking about.
Humble.
Yeah. But even that, I don't know if that was compared to Pop That and those songs. I don't think you would that wasn't that big. So it's kind of it's just different. It's just different.
I think when it comes to the charts, though, they're very comparable, and in certain cases, Kendrick has more chart entries than French Montana, if I'm not mistaken.
I would expect the audience to. I would expect them to, especially, and that's again, that's why I say it goes back to what you call a hit, which is why it's kind of a funny conversation.
It's
because
a funny term,
with this streaming era that we're in, you can have a song that's really high on the charts because everyone streams it because they really like the song.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I think when, like you said, when French Montana is talking about hit, he's probably thinking more of radio. Even though radio, we don't think of the radio, but radio is still a very good gauge of what is quote unquote commercially big.
Or mainstream.
French Montana, and French Montana might think that, I might have more stuff that got played on the radio regularly, nonstop. And without actually doing the research or thinking that hard about it, I think he's not completely out of bounds to think or say that.
I agree, because again, if you hear the clip, he made it very clear that I'm not trying to say, that I'm a better rapper by the man or
He was
than
just
the
trying to
man by
say,
any means. I'm just saying, like, maybe on a festival stage, I can hold my own. If not, I can maybe do better than Kendrick.
okay. So how did Young
Which is
Thug get
fair enough.
involved?
Young Thug is basically like, bruh, sit down. Take many seats. I don't know what you're talking about, but Kendrick Lamar is GOAT status, basically. Basically. I'm putting extra, effigy on it, but you know what I'm trying to say. And French Montana was just like, bruh, sit down. You don't need to get involved. You wear a skirt. The typical Young Thug digs. And then Young Thug came back like, bro, shut up. You've gotten beaten up by Meek Mill. There's footage out there that Meek needs to release and blah, blah, which apparently might have some credence to it. And whatever, things of the sort. Basically, they had exchange of words that weren't too sweet, weren't too friendly. Some would say Thug, I guess, won in a way, because a lot of people would agree with Thug when it comes to the Kendrick versus French Montana thing, although as we just spoke about ad nauseum, like, we get where French Montana was coming from.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was looking for any smoke with Kendrick Lamar. And I just think Young Thug was just like, I have time today. I'm going to speak on this. And here we are. I'm not sure, though. I've heard that there might be some rumblings of like a little bit of sauce between Young Thug and French Montana. Like, they're not on like the most friendly of terms, but I also don't think they were like beefing outright.
Yeah, no, I can imagine them not like all those people are just weird because they all have like a weird connection, like those like Atlanta area people in French Montana, because he was there for a minute, like, so he kind of got entrenched. So I can imagine there's actually some stuff that we just don't know about.
Well, I hear it's about a girl, as everything is.
I mean, who's surprised? Like, isn't it always about a girl? So
it's always about a girl.
Yeah, it's funny though. It's random. It's don't
such
think
a
this
random
is a
thing,
quote unquote beef that we need any music from.
Yeah,
I think that they can keep it on social media. That would be good enough for us. We don't need to hear them rapping about each other. But it's nice to have a little bit of friction out here. We look for stuff like this as long as it's non-violent.
Right.
So,
I agree with that.
It's funny enough, I was listening to a podcast and it brought up French Montana versus who did they pit him against in terms of hits?
Was it Tory Lanez? Because they actually did go back and forth.
Yeah.
They did go back and forth.
Because they're supposed to have a battle, right? Because they're supposed
to
have a battle.
It on quarantine radio. Quarantine.
Right.
On the quarantine radio.
Did Tory Lanez actually because I remember the conversation in the podcast. It was actually the Joe Budden podcast.
Okay.
And I feel like if I might be remembering this wrong, but I felt like overwhelmingly, at least maybe 2 or 3 out of the people there were like, "Oh, Tory Lanez is gonna win easily," and
really?
I was like, why would you think that? Like, French Montana, like, kind of going back to like, I feel like French Montana almost isn't respected for some reason.
He doesn't get his respect. He does.
Has the big hits, like,
he does.
I mean, that's like
although Dolapo, I always make this joke about French Montana.
Okay.
I don't know him to have a song of his own. Like, every song he has a feature. At least all the big ones.
You're probably right. Ones. I mean, that's why I said, like, that's his specialty. He literally he seeks them out. Like, even all his songs he's been releasing for the last year or two, like, you can tell, like, he's just trying to get a really big hit. And I'm not mad at him because that's obviously his business.
I mean, he's trying to make money. Yeah,
his business model is make the biggest possible song, and I'll be rich.
So I think that's part of the reason he doesn't fully get all the respect, because people are like, you're just riding on other talented people's coattails. But I do think French has a thing of his own. Like, he came out in this game on his own. Like, he had, his mixtapes, Mac and Cheese, and like he had those DVDs that were a little bit popular back then. So I understand.
He's obviously, like, to me, he's just someone that, like, is a hustler. And like, he's not necessarily the guy that can rap the most. Like, he's just one of those guys, like, he just knows how to be successful.
He's like a DJ Khaled to me.
Yeah. I mean, he just knows how to be successful. He knows what the people want to hear.
And he keeps good relationships and, uses them to his advantage.
Oh, man. Yeah.
No, but how about we take the very different turn from that topic?
Yeah, let's take a very different turn from that topic. So another thing that's been going crazy on social media recently, specifically on Saturday, was there was this tweet I saw that someone said Kim Jong Un is dead.
Yeah.
Kim Jong Un, for those that don't know, like one of our friends that I won't mention her name, she has a
Who?
podcast. I don't want to mention her name, but she
Oh
has
my
a
God,
podcast.
really?
And she was
I know
like,
who you're
oh,
talking
yeah,
about then.
he is the he is the leader of North Korea.
Wait, no. I thought, okay, what did she say? She's the, what did she think he was?
She was unsure of what country he was the leader of,
Oh,
and was
wow.
like, "Yeah, I don't care," and it was like, "Oh,
Damn.
like,
Okay.
yeah," and I had to
That's
like,
interesting.
I specifically have to be like, "Yeah, South Korea doesn't have a dictator, so
Yeah,
like, it's
that's the whole
not,
thing. That's the
and
whole thing.
yeah." But she
I
was
can go
like,
to Seoul,
North,
South Korea
South,
and
it's
not be
all
scared.
like all of them are all the same to her, and I was like, "Yeah." I
What?
mean, luckily, she just didn't know what he was the leader of.
That's
And she was
funny.
like, she doesn't care. She's like, why is my group chat going crazy over this? I don't care about him. So that was her. But maybe people out
That's
there care
funny.
about him. He's the leader of North Korea. There were
Hmm.
rumors that he was dead yesterday.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything substantiated that he is dead. I think he.
Yeah, there are conflicting reports. Like
Hmm.
some are saying that he's in a vegetative state and he's
Hmm.
brain dead, and then some are saying he is outright dead. I know like the big source I think that popped this whole thing off is like the niece of some sort of high-ranking official in China
Okay.
who has like an underground social media page, if you will, that a lot of people follow, but it's
Okay.
not like Twitter. You know what I mean? It's a
Hmm.
social media page that the layman wouldn't necessarily be familiar with, especially if you're not from China.
Okay.
But anyway, she tweeted, I think that he's dead. I think she said he was just dead.
Okay.
And then obviously because people consider her to be reputable when it comes to her connections and knowing information like that, it caught wind.
Yeah.
But then again, of course, there's been like, I think there was a Japanese magazine or something that said it was just like a heart surgery gone botched and then or gone wrong,
Hmm.
or a botched heart surgery. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that basically rendered the guy dead, brain dead. So either way, he's not okay. Like,
Yeah, I think that's all we know is that he's not okay. I think
mhm.
the most, I don't want to say solid because who knows what's real right now,
Right,
but
right.
what I've seen the most, I would say, is that it was some kind of heart surgery, like you said,
Hmm.
and like he's not in a good state,
Right.
dead or almost dead or whatever level
Yeah.
of dead he's on. So it's just a crazy story.
Hmm.
I saw a lot of memes. People were quick with the memes before like you could
They
even
didn't waste
say a word.
no time. Waste
Yeah, I
no
had a I
time.
had a good chuckle or two. But just you're a political person, so I'll give you a quick minute to just tell us. First of all, what's the
Hmm.
relevance? Why should we care?
Oh,
Because
um,
people out there like saying that they don't care, they don't know. Like, how does that affect us?
I mean, I
Does it affect us?
understand why people keep saying that because, I mean, first and foremost, he is a dictator known to do bad things. Like, I'm
Mhm.
sure one of the things you saw circulating on social media is that surgeon is probably dead. Whoever botched the surgery is probably not
Mhm.
alive as we
Mhm.
speak. So we know him to do really bad things and them in North Korea to be under some sort of oppression. So I get why people are like, I don't care. I don't have anything to do with this guy. And he's a mean guy anyway. So bye bye. But the thing is, it could have national security implications in the way that, like, this guy was the leader of a country that has missiles that could apparently hit mainland
Mhm.
USA. So when the leader is no longer active, let's just put it
Mhm.
that way, then who is the one that now is able to make certain calls like that?
Mm.
Who's the next in line? Like, a country that has no leader or that has too many leaders or too many potential leaders or hopeful leaders, whatever, however you want to put it, can make very drastic, crazy decisions
Yeah.
that could fall in line with what their guy Kim Jong Il would have done, or go fully against it. Like maybe
Mhm.
there's some people who would have wanted him to shoot one of those missiles, and maybe that's going to be the next leader. Or maybe it could be the positive end of it. Really, hopefully, maybe it is. Like maybe
Yeah.
whoever is next in line is going to be way better. But North Korea doesn't really seem to have that track record going. Like his dad, or was it his grandpa? I think his dad is who he took over
Honestly, don't
from.
know.
I think it's his dad that he took over from.
Okay.
He wasn't a great guy either. So what we're hearing though is that it's probably going to be his sister. Like
Oh, really?
she's like
I
his,
didn't know
yeah,
that.
because she's like his left hand woman. Like even when they were having those talks in, I think it was Singapore last year, Trump and North
Mhm.
Korea,
I remember.
she was involved in some of
I
those
do remember
talks.
that now that you say that.
Yeah,
I do
yeah.
remember that.
So. They think it
Yeah.
could be her, but who knows? We'll find out
Yeah. Yeah. No,
eventually.
I think what you brought up is definitely a reason to care, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
if he is dead, it could have very serious implications, and we have
Yeah.
no idea which way it's going to go because
Exactly.
depending on who takes over, we don't know where their mind's at. We don't know
Yeah.
what just so many
Yeah.
things we don't know. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I don't even know if I want to say hopefully he's not dead, but we never wish death on anyone, right? On here at
I'll
Turn
just
234.
refrain from speaking on
So
it. Period.
we hope that whatever happens is best for the people of North Korea
Yeah,
and the people of the
that's
world.
a good way of putting it.
And
Yep.
yeah, I think we should leave it at that.
Yeah.
To kind of wrap up quick hits though, another thing that kind of happened recently, it wasn't as big a news story because it's like a repeat, which seems like a rerun, like everyone is doing this now. But there was a BBC correspondent who basically stated on air live that he thinks that COVID vaccines should be tested in Kenya.
Okay.
Pretty much his comment was if the vaccine doesn't work in Great Britain, if they're not having success with their trials, they should just go to Kenya and try it out there.
Is it because Kenya has had previous trials that have gone well?
So he did reference that they've done other trials there before,
Okay.
in Africa mainly, but it wasn't very clear why he would say Kenya, why he would say Africa. Like it was just very random. And of course, I don't know if we mentioned this on here before, but a couple weeks ago, we had two French journalists pretty much do the same thing of saying, hey, just go test it out in Africa. Go to West Africa and test it out. Let's see what happens. And it's just a crazy idea of why is it that you want to test it out there, especially considering right now that most of the corona cases are not in Africa.
Not,
So
yeah.
why would you go test it there? Like, it seems like you should not go disturb them, like leave them alone.
Yeah, this sounds very peculiar. Like, I definitely want us to hear more about exactly why he's saying this, because it could be good or bad, honestly. It could be either that he knows there to have been success with maybe like a prior pandemic like SARS or whatever. Or it could be that, oh, well, you know, we don't want our people dying, so let's try it on other people I don't care as much about. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like BBC is a little bit better than that, though. Like, I put a little bit more weight behind the type of reporting they do or type of people that they hire. So I'm just going to hope it's the former and not the latter option. But who knows?
And I think it just brings up the bigger question of, even if you've had previous success there, still, why are you going there?
Right.
Like,
it just doesn't make sense.
I don't see the value in, like, why are you going to test that population or why are you going to try it on that population? Another, like, unless they're more heavily affected and they're the ones that are specifically affected, why it's a test in Great Britain should be just as good. So it just sometimes kind of shows you the level of respect and value that is placed on Africans by various people around the world, and it's kind of sad, but it is what it is. And we'll keep working to change that, let them know that we're not here to be our guinea pigs. It's to us, we don't want it. It's not right.
I mean, and on the topic of corona, let's just let the people know, give them a little taste of what's in store for the rest of the episode.
This episode, we'll be honest, we recorded it backwards because, real G's. So we have a special guest for you, medical doctor who is in the field, working now, today, in a hospital, dealing with the corona, on the front lines, as you would say.
He's literally on the front lines, exactly.
So
but more importantly, he's of the Don't Rush Challenge fame.
You keep saying more importantly. I don't know why you think that's more important.
I'm joking. Obviously, I'm joking. Come on, give me a little bit more credit. Come on.
No.
Obviously not, but he's of this newfound popularity coming out of the Don't Rush Challenge that some people are having. So you'll definitely get to hear a little bit about that, and just I guess really more importantly, how a frontline worker is handling this whole virus personally.
Exactly. It's going to be very informative. Definitely want to make sure you listen to that. But before we go over and people get to listen to the Corona talk, let's talk about music for a second. Like, what is your music, song, whatever? We still don't have a name for the segment, but yes, let us know.
I think I'm gonna go with a James Blake song called "You're Too Special." I don't even know if I want to call it a song. It's just like an audio experience. It's interesting. Do you know James Blake?
I feel like I know him. I know his name for sure, but I feel
Yeah.
like there's a couple of James. So I actually think I might mix him up. Is James
No.
Blake black or white?
Okay.
Oh my
I
god.
think you're thinking of James Blunt.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking
Because
James
James
Blunt is white.
Blake, yeah,
I
yeah.
know that.
But James Blake, though, I think you would know him from like producer, like writer credits more so than
Okay.
as an artist
He's done stuff
himself.
for Drake, I feel like.
Yeah, Drake,
Did he do
Beyonce.
Beyonce? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
That's where
what
I
you
know
would
his
really
name.
know him from. Exactly. That's what you would know his name from. I don't think he's really like an artist per se. Like he doesn't
Okay.
really market himself as that, but he does release music from time to time. And
Okay.
it's usually very like eerie, ambiance inducing type of music. And this particular song is that kind of vibe. It's just
Okay.
cool. It's a cool song. I like it.
Okay.
And there's a lot that came out this week, but because you always give me so much slack, I went, or not even slack. You give me so much shit. Slack. There you go.
I got you.
Yeah, because you always give me so much slack. I stuck to one, but there were several that came out this week. So everybody look at your release radars and see what's out.
Yeah. I was telling you earlier, I haven't really been listening to any music. Like I've been in a bubble. I'm trying to break out of my bubble
You
because
need
being at
to.
home has just
let me
like
pop that bubble for you.
yeah,
Come
I've
on.
kind of just turned off
Get out.
everything. But I'm gonna try to turn it back on and try to be normal. I think that will help. But one of the songs in preparation for this segment, I actually tried to do a little bit of research this morning. So there's a song, Khalid. You know what I'm talking about.
The person?
Yes.
Or the name of the song? Okay.
No, the person.
Yeah,
no.
Khalid.
The way I said it the first time, I was like, I don't think this is the accepted way that people say his name.
Khalid. He has a song with Davido, right?
Yeah, Khalid. Yes, exactly. He has a song with Davido and Thames.
Yeah,
who I have
really
been
good song.
yelling about. Yeah, it's a really good song.
Yeah.
It's called Know Your Worth. I believe it's the remix of the song, right?
It is, yeah.
So yeah, the song just came out recently, I believe.
I liked it a lot. It was one of the several. So yeah, thank you. You helped me out. You gave him another one.
Yeah. So that's a really good song. You should definitely check out those two songs. Let us know what you think. And yeah, let's talk about Corona.
Let's talk about Corona, people. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. Time for our main topic at hand. We have a special guest with us. Why don't you introduce yourself over there?
Hey, my name is Daniel. I'm a current PGY3 resident in Baltimore. I'm going into gastroenterology. That's my specialty.
Okay.
So, so I mean, that's a bit intro. I mean, I'm Nigerian, born and raised in Nigeria. Been here for more than 15 years now. But
so you're American now. You're not Nigerian anymore.
What are you talking about, Dolapo? Are you
American? I'm American too. We're all American now.
You can take the bushman out of the bush.
But you can't take the bush out of the man.
Exactly.
But yeah, so yeah, essentially that's my background.
Okay, that's cool.
Well, thank you for being on with us, first of all.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
No problem.
No, so like as the audience just heard, Daniel is in the medical field. He's completing his residency right now. How's that going, by the way? Like you're fulfilling your parents' dreams, I'm sure. As a Nigerian guy.
Yeah, I mean it's going well. I mean, I've been in this hospital for a long time. I was a medical student in the hospital that I'm currently at, and the fact that I'm part of the MedStar system, which is a great hospital that provides good care. And I was happy to be part of the hospital program. It's been really good. It's a very inclusive program. Everybody looks out for each other. I'm in a community hospital. The good thing about working in a community hospital is everybody knows everybody. So if you mention Daniel, they'll tell you, oh, Daniel's upstairs sitting on the computer in front of the computer. Like they will tell you exactly where.
Yeah.
Well, that's good and bad. You know what? Literally, Daniel, the one that don't do any work like that.
Exactly.
So you have to be on your job.
You have to be on your job, and the good thing is, because everybody looks out for each other, we all know each other, we all care for each other. I've been in the hospital for 5 years now. I was a medical student there. I rotated there during the third and fourth year of medical school. And then when I started residency, so it's become such a family that I know everybody in every department, from the OBGYN to pathology to medicine department to the emergency room. I go into the emergency room and I'm like, "What up?" And so that's the way I feel. I love being there. So I think that's the one thing I love about being in my program.
Okay,
No, I love the
awesome.
positive vibes. I love it all. But obviously, the world is hit with a major pandemic. I mean, if you're in this planet, you know. So, with that
Yes.
said, are those positive vibes still going, or have you felt a shift?
There's no, actually, to be honest, everybody's actually looking out for, everyone's scared together.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the thing, because everybody's scared, everyone is fishing for information.
Right.
And we're all trying to be on the same page when it comes to how we manage our patients. And I
Right.
think that's the most important thing for any healthcare system is being on the same page.
Right.
Uh, Meaning we must look out for each other,
Yeah.
make sure we're all wearing PPEs as we should, and personal protective equipment are the things that we put on before we go see a patient, depending on what type of isolation that they have.
Mm-hmm.
With COVID patients, one of the big things is that a lot of times we wear N95s and we wear a face shield. We wear,
Right.
what's it called, a hat on
For
our
those
head.
that don't know, what's a N95? Is that the gown?
So N95 is the mask.
Okay.
The
So
one
a
that
lot of
like
times
seals everything out,
that
right?
seals everything.
Yeah.
I mean, although we know that, or we're not know, we based on the research that's currently available, we don't think the virus is airborne.
Airborne,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, we think that it is aerosolized, right? And from
Mm-hmm.
all the studies recently, the virus can last up to 2 to 3 hours in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, especially a lot of our COVID patients who are intubated,
Mm-hmm.
or if they're getting some type of aerosolized treatment, which we try to avoid as much as possible, there are virus particles that can be in the air for 2 to 3 hours. And in order to protect ourselves, we do wear the N95 to have a bit more of a secure seal.
Right.
Because as in medicine, we look at the virus particles based on size, so microns. The smaller the microns of the virus, the more it is easy to penetrate through things. So if it's when we talk about airborne, we look at things that are less than 5 microns. At least that's what we usually categorize them. But the larger particles will be okay with a regular surgical mask. You don't actually have to wear N95. The reason why we went N95 is just to provide a more secure feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So for the most part, most hospitals are trying their best to stay protected. When the surge of patients came in, there was a lot of issues because healthcare providers weren't protected. And a lot of them, there's a study that came out recently that showed that 88% of patients who get on the vent die, which is a huge number. 88% of people who get on the vent
A
die.
ventilator, yeah.
That number is huge. And because of that, a lot of times, imagine we have a patient who's on the vent, right, who's COVID positive, has really bad COVID pneumonia. And with COVID pneumonia, it's a very pathological finding on the CAT scan. We can see certain changes in appearance on the CAT scan, and the radiologist can look at it and be like, listen, this is COVID pneumonia.
Yeah.
And when I do have high suspicion, a lot of times if I have high clinical suspicion and they test positive, I don't necessarily need to do a CAT scan. But the only reason why that would prompt me to do a CAT scan is if the patient acutely becomes short of breath, because a lot of patients who are COVID positive are prone to thromboembolic events, meaning their blood clots a lot faster. And because their blood clots a lot faster, they're more likely to develop something we call pulmonary embolisms and also embolic events, which is because their blood clots. There's a lot of reasons why we believe that this is happening, which is a lot of things that doctors are facing right now, is that why is COVID making patients clot so easily? And that's one of the biggest killers that we're having right now, is because if imagine a vessel clots that's providing blood supply to the heart,
Of course,
to the lung,
yeah.
then they're not dying because of a pneumonia. They're dying because they can't it's a mismatch. They're not getting enough oxygen that they need. So one of the biggest things that we are now doing is sometimes we're having to put patients on anticoagulation to prevent them from anticoagulation is blood thinners. So we put patients on blood thinners to prevent them from clotting so much. So that is the one step. The second step is, imagine you have a COVID patient who goes into cardiac arrest. Their heart stops. And the nurses and all the providers are outside the room. Now we all have to gown up. When it comes to CPR, the faster you start the CPR, because having lack of oxygen to the brain for more than a certain amount of time, as you know,
Irreversible.
Yeah.
irreversible. And when we look at hospital data, resuscitation is about less than 15% when we do CPR, right? It's a low number in most hospitals. So imagine the risks already high when you're doing CPR on a patient to bring them back. Then imagine the amount of time it takes for us to gown up, wear PPEs, then walk into the room. That could take maybe 3-4 minutes where that patient is without oxygen. You get what I mean? Then we start CPR after everybody is gowned up. Do you get what I mean? Versus a patient who is not positive, who goes into cardiac arrest, and we all jump in the room, start CPR, and maybe 5 minutes they come back. And they still have. I've done CPR on a few people who have actually come back, and they're walking and talking. Right? I've done CPR on patients who they've had cardiac arrest 2 times at least, and they've come back. And it's one of those things where in this case where they have severe pneumonia, so they have damage to the lung, the lining of the lungs, and then they also now have problems with coagulation, meaning they end up with strokes, they end up with cardiac embolus because of how much their blood clots. And then we have the chances that if their heart does stop, the amount of time it takes for us to get ready to go into that patient's room to start them on CPR. All those things put patients at higher risk for death, right? So that is what we're dealing with in the hospital, making sure we have enough supplies that all our providers are protected, because we can't lose our frontline people, workers, right? So we have to keep our providers equipped and ready to fight this battle. We also have to keep our patients who don't have COVID safe, right? So we have to make sure we follow proper protocol, take off our gowns the right way, and prevent. I'm not gonna, you see a COVID patient, you don't prepare right, or you don't do things right, and then I go see a 92-year-old woman, and who doesn't have COVID, So that's the reason why we follow a certain protocol. Everybody has to be on the same page for the safety of our patients who have COVID and our patients who don't have COVID.
Okay, let me ask you this question. As far as all the people that work in the hospital, right? So of course it sounds like the more time goes on, the more research, the more knowledge comes out, you probably feel a little better that at least kind of how you can manage, right? But has there been, or was there ever a super high level of paranoia? Because I know a lot of other information I've seen about other hospitals, especially in New York, which of course is different than here because they have an incredible number of cases. The thing that a lot of people heard was just the sadness in the workplace, or how people that were coming to work were just really sad. People were crying. People were just the emotional toll, even more than the physical toll. Have you dealt with that firsthand? Have you seen people dealing with that?
I definitely have. Imagine having to call a patient of yours, mother or children, saying that, by the way, your mom just passed away this morning and you couldn't see her.
I'm hearing that's the biggest.
And that's the biggest thing we're having to deal with is okay, I have to tell. And, a part of me is I almost want to cry on the phone. I imagine myself, God forbid, somebody calling my mother and saying, oh, by the way. So I think that that's the biggest emotional thing that a lot of
healthcare workers are dealing with.
And I have a friend in New York. He's a hospitalist in New York. He's coding 5-6 patients on a daily basis.
Wow.
Initially, when this started, meaning 5-6 patients are dying on a daily basis. And that's just in his team. That's his own team. That's not looking at the entire hospital combined. And there are nurses who tell me the whole floor, you could have half a patient's code.
Wow.
Imagine that's, that is a really high amount of people dying. And the biggest thing is the emotional toil that this is taking on the country. Not just for patients who have COVID and family people dealing with COVID. There are people who have, depression, bipolar, all those very, very, mental illness,
mental health, concerns.
Being home by themselves puts them at higher risk for suicide. And I think a lot of times we have to be concerned about that. I think there was something released on the news where a girl from high school killed herself.
There's been an uptick in suicides that I've been seeing.
There's an uptick in suicides, there's an uptick in divorces, right? That's something that's going on.
In domestic abuse.
Some things that have kept people in some people's their work and their jobs have almost been their vice or their way of escape, right?
Escaping,
They come
yeah.
back home
Yeah.
and they're able to manage things because they love what they do. But now you can't do what you love, right? And you're stuck at home, right? And if you have, difficulties dealing with issues at home, you don't have any way of dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I tell people is you have to reach out to your friends. If you're not hearing back from your friends in days, just check on them, make sure they're okay. Send a text message. Doesn't take much. Send a mass text message. You don't have to be like, hey, Akin, how are you doing today? No, you can just say, no, seriously, you could just say,
no, you're right though.
Yeah, you could be like, how are you doing today? And just send it to like 20, 30 people. Somebody might respond and be like, hey, I'm not doing so well. Then you follow up with that person. The ones that are like, well, I'm managing, then you're like, okay, well, that person is managing, right?
And I appreciate you bringing this up, Daniel, because we know like COVID-19 to be a health pandemic, but it goes beyond just that physical health. It's also that mental health. So I feel like everybody has to be in it together, not just when it comes to that physical aspect of it, but making sure everybody stays well, because the virus is not going to obviously attack your mental health directly, but the adjacent effects are something that we need to worry about just as much as what we know to be the real effects. But I mean, it's really cool though having like a doctor speak on this, because for like the past several weeks now, me and Dolapo have obviously tried our best to relay the information and be as up to date as possible. But hearing your point of view is very much appreciated. Like even when it came to you speaking about the blood coagulations or the heart effects, all of that is something that I don't think I've ever really looked into. We all know the symptoms, we all know it's a respiratory issue, we all know the pneumonia aspect of it, but some of the things you were bringing up were things I didn't even realize were such a major issue when it came to this pandemic.
Yeah,
How do you feel about it,
let me
Dolapo?
let me ask this question. Yeah, no, it is definitely good. I mean, Faye's becoming a doctor. Faye just said coagulation. Like, what? Like, let's go to med school now.
I know.
No, I was gonna ask, because you kind of referenced a couple of studies. How much have you been wary of misinformation? Because that's something that we've dealt with a lot with this, where we hear this, we hear that. At first it was like only old people are affected, this and that.
Yeah, I only follow evidence-based medicine.
Okay.
So so when it comes to, I'm one of those people that even before Corona came out, I'm on New England Medical Journal.
Yeah.
Even if I'm going to follow some news sources, I'm on New York Times.
Right.
There's certain reputable sources that you can look forward to. And unfortunately, some misinformation is from sometimes our people who are supposed to be in charge. So the point is we have to find ways to separate the information that we have and be able to tell what's real and what's not. There's a lot of stuff about hydroxychloroquine that came out in the very beginning. A lot of people were rushing towards hydroxychloroquine. There were people who died in countries thinking that hydroxychloroquine would be prophylactic treatment for COVID. But like I said, the NIH just started studying hydroxychloroquine in full spectrum. Hydroxychloroquine had been studied in the past for SARS-CoV-1, which is what we know as SARS that hit 2002. That's SARS. Hydroxychloroquine has been studied. And in studies, what we do is we have ways of, so when we do studies, a lot of times we do something called in vitro and in vivo. In vitro means we look at the cells individually outside the body. And in vivo means that we look at the cells actively, right? So one of those things is like that's when we start testing human or rats. So we start doing those things. So hydroxychloroquine outside the cells or outside the body had shown to be beneficial, right? That's what the previous studies, especially with SARS-CoV-1. But when they tested it with rats, it didn't show any benefit. Right.
Gotcha.
And a lot of the studies, there was two studies that were done. One was done in China, and I think one was done in France. Two studies that was done on hydroxychloroquine, and the two studies were done. The one that was done in France showed that hydroxychloroquine helped, but guess what? There's no control group, and it wasn't a randomized trial. And so these are the things that there's things that we look at that lets us know how strong
accurate,
the information
how strong the evidence we have. But the study that was done in China that had a little bit more, more power, which power is what we say. So I use the word power means the amount of people we had in the study. So the larger the sample size, the more power you have.
Okay.
You know,
Got
essentially, which makes sense, right? If you have more people, you have more power.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Another
for
thing
sure.
that, like, you know, this study is valid, right?
Mhm.
So the studies that were done in China showed that hydroxychloroquine didn't really help as much as there was no statistical difference. So there's no statistical advantage, the ones that were done in China. And there were other medications like IL-6 inhibitors, which are medications, you know, I don't want to go into some of the names.
Feel you.
But just different things.
Yeah, and then there's the other like remdesivir and all this other medications that are out there that we are still testing, right? Right now, the FDA does not necessarily have any approved medication for COVID. A lot of things were done under the act that Trump, which was the emergency act.
The CARES Act, yeah.
No, not the CARE Act. It's actually an act that Trump
prior to that.
No, this is during the COVID crisis.
I'm saying prior to the CARES Act.
No, prior to this is no, not prior to. It was done more recently, like say probably when Corona hit.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it was more of the act that says we're allowed to use any emergency medication.
Right, where he alleviated the FDA of some of the red tape.
Exactly.
Got
so essentially, that doesn't necessarily mean that those medications are FDA approved for treatment of SARS-CoV-2, right? Well, because so people have to realize, so SARS-CoV-2 is the name of the virus. COVID-19 is the name of the disease.
Okay.
So that's one thing that people have to clarify too, because we had SARS-CoV-1, we have SARS-CoV-2, and so COVID-19 is the disease that we're treating, right?
Right.
While the virus is SARS-CoV-2.
Right.
So, and we know we came from Wuhan, China, in the Hubei province. That's where the virus originated from. But yeah, so I think one of the things, like, you know, there's so many drugs out there that we're testing. And now every scientist is testing every drug they can find. You know, the other day people are testing ivermectin, you know, which is a drug we use for lice. We use it for a lot of other things. So, but it's one of those medications that people are testing a lot of medications right now to see if something's going to work.
I mean, something very topical when it comes to misinformation, like outside of even the drugs, because I feel like with the drugs, they're kind of just, you know, throwing shit against the wall and hoping something sticks. So that's one thing. But we have obviously heard as of this past week that disinfectant being injected into your body can help. So that's just like a grave example of misinformation coming from the top. I actually don't know how true this is, but I saw online that in New York there were, I think, like 30 reported people who actually tried to inject.
Yeah, I heard about that
or
too.
ingest.
I didn't really see. I wasn't sure.
Exactly. I wasn't sure if it was real or not either. But I can't put it past the American public. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, the president is saying it, and this is where a lot of people, like the bulk of the country, is getting their information directly from these briefings that take place every single day. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, some people who, you know, might just trust anything that comes out of their president's mouth took part in that behavior. But yeah, that's probably the most grave example of misinformation we've heard thus far. But Dolapo, before we pivot out of like the medical aspect of it, do you have anything else you want to bring up with Daniel?
No, I think that was pretty informative. You know, thank you for informing us. It's interesting. It's always interesting, I think, when you talk to someone that works in the field, because I think you always you learn like a little tidbit that you would never think about because you don't work in there. Like I remember one of the first things that was crazy to me was like, oh, if you have COVID-19, like no one can come see you in the hospital. Like I never thought about that. Like you're gonna die alone. Like that. Like
that's so heartbreaking.
So it's always crazy. You said something earlier, and now I can't remember what it was.
88% of people dying on the
not even that. I mean, that's crazy too.
But
the part about like if you need CPR, like before they can actually come help you,
they have to gown
I would never think about that because I'm not in the field. Like I don't know. So it's like literally, it's bad in every single way. I was gonna ask though, Faye, you were kind of talking about before we started recording how the social media part and how Daniel is.
I was giving Daniel his flowers. I was making it known that he's a little popular in these group chat streets. From like the first 10, 15, 20 minutes that we've been talking now, Daniel has shown his intelligence. We know what his roots are, but he also has another side to him. He knows how to have fun. He's not just a nerd. Even though there's nothing wrong with being a nerd.
Wow, I don't know. Like you just low key called him a nerd.
Nah,
Like,
but
where
I'm
did
a
that come
nerd.
from?
I'm a nerd too. So we're in this together, okay, Daniel? It's all right. It's all right. It's all good. But anyway, yeah. So like I said, you're a little popular right now. And that's because you partook in one of the biggest challenges of quarantine thus far. You want to tell us about it? How you got involved?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had a few friends who hit me up on Instagram. One of my friends, he's at Hopkins, he's the anesthesiology resident in Hopkins, and he hit me up and was like, hey, we're doing this challenge. I'm like, what challenge? I was getting up because I worked ICU because I've been, since the whole COVID crisis, I've mainly been in the ICU.
Yeah.
So I've been in the ICU for like 4 nights straight, and he's like, let's do this challenge. And somebody had asked me before, and I was going to do that one, but then I was like, I wasn't going to be able to do it on time before the deadline. And so my friend sent me, he's like, oh, we're doing ours tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I think I can do tomorrow. So I got off work that morning and I just like put on some clothes and I did it. I didn't know people were going to be taking off shirts. But the point is that I just did my own quickly, and I was the last person to post my video or to add my video to the group. And next thing you know, we got a lot of comments. And in the morning, somebody messaged me like, you're on Shade Room. I was like, what? And then next thing you know, I woke up and I had like 15,000 new followers. I was like, what?
What?
Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah.
Off of that?
Off of that. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a pretty big deal. You hit me up and showed me video, and
I mean, yeah, I showed it to
you,
you thinking like, I don't know, he had a little bit of attention for a moment. I didn't know he was about to get 15K.
But the
just
Shade
like
Room
that.
is pretty big, though. I think you're downplaying.
You're right. The Shade Room is huge. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But yeah, so I think that was the fun part of it. But the one thing that social media has also allowed us to see is the healthcare disparity with African Americans dying from COVID. I think the underlying discussion that we need to talk about is we're saying more African Americans are dying based on population size.
Right.
More Caucasians have COVID. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
Because there's more Caucasians in the United States, right? They're a majority. But based on the population, right, and based on the amount they represent in the population, in states like Chicago, cities like Chicago,
Louisiana, I know,
and Louisiana,
same thing, yeah.
like that, you are seeing a huge disparity where like they make up about 30% of the population and they make up about 70% of the deaths.
Yeah.
Right. So that is there's based on so many different things. Fundamentally, there's the ability for a lot of African Americans to work from home, right? That is very low. There was some study that said like only 1 in 5 African Americans can work from home.
That's something I didn't even think about.
So what does that say about us? Like it means that the ability to social distance is a luxury.
It is.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It means that not everybody has the ability to, like I said, if you're a janitor or you're an essential worker, you work at Walmart, you work at stores that are open, you work at you're an Uber driver, how are you supposed to make your ends meet? Your rent still due, right? Your kids still have to eat, right? They asked somebody recently in Nigeria, and they were like, the person said, I'd rather die from COVID than hunger.
I mean, hunger, you feel hunger right now.
Simply put, yeah.
Yeah, because, they're like, well, the chances I'm going to die from COVID, yes, is high. But the chances that I'm going to die from hunger is a guarantee.
If I don't eat, I will die.
I would die.
Yeah.
Right? So, that being said, not just Nigeria, but here, look at that healthcare disparity. African Americans in general are at a healthcare disadvantage because of some of the comorbidities that haven't been managed well by our healthcare system. A lot of people don't have primary care doctors. Because
they were already a vulnerable population when it came to the healthcare system. Yeah.
It's not saying that there are higher risk for any other reason. At least we don't have any statistical evidence to support that. Like I'm an evidence-based guy. If there's no evidence, I don't believe it.
You don't speak on it.
So, but in this case, it's more of underlying COPD, hypertension, diabetes. Those things put you at higher risk of having severe COVID symptoms. And if a lot of people, and there's a lot of African Americans that don't trust the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Right?
There were a lot of them that were saying they couldn't get COVID too.
There was a lot of misinformation from the media about Black people not being able to get COVID. until Idris Elba got it. And then some other big people started to get it. So all that information, people were still out, not practicing social distancing. You know, there was a party in a barbershop in New York with 50 people recently, just last week.
Wow.
So there's a lot of people not taking it seriously, right? Because they're misinformed. Misinformation is the worst. Because
it is.
a lot of times some people are uninformed, and then there's some people that are misinformed. So both are terrible, right? But at least the people that are misinformed have the ability to discern from the news and say, oh, well, this is true, this is not true, right? Because they can look at the data given to them. But if you're not even paying attention to the news and you know nothing about what's going on, you have no way of protecting yourself. I'm walking around in the streets of Baltimore with a mask on, and people were looking at me weird, like, you got a mask on, right? Because I'm like, this virus aerosolizes when you imagine somebody sneezes or coughs in the air. If I walk past that breeze, there's a chance that I might inhale the particles and get the disease, right? So that's the essential importance of wearing the masks. And the more the mask protects people who have the virus too. So it protects people who have the high virus from giving it to people who don't have it. So imagine you have the virus and you cough. The mask will protect you from spreading the particles to other people who don't have it. So there's a lot of healthcare disparities that are becoming more apparent. The problem has always been there. It's things like this that bring it out. In countries like ours, in countries like Nigeria, where we know our healthcare system is terrible, and now our politicians have no option of traveling abroad to get treatment. If they have it, they have it.
They have it.
And they have to deal with it with the healthcare system available.
That they have,
So this is bringing out a lot of things to the light that we have not been, we've kind of like, you know,
brushed under the rug for a while,
like, oh yeah, we always say, no, this people have comorbidities and hypertension and diabetes and this. There are people who have been walking around with high blood pressure who don't know. Hypertension is a silent killer. You could be walking around and your blood pressure is 180 over 110 and you don't know. Right? Until one day, God forbid, you break your leg, you come into the hospital. Why is your blood pressure so high, sir? I know about high blood pressure. Oh, really? You didn't know you had high blood pressure? What? People were like, but you don't know. And then we start your treatment and then you get better, but the damage has already been done. What happens with high blood pressure? What happens with diabetes? There's vascular changes that happens, right, in the body that affects the way each organ works with hypertension, with diabetes, right? Those with COPD, there are actually changes that the body has to undergo for the body to adapt to those situations. Your body, your vessels aren't supposed to be able to withhold that much pressure. So they stiffen. With the amount of salt we take in our diets and the type of foods we eat and genetic predisposition, our vessels get tougher and stiffer. And then what happens is, the more hypertrophy the vessels have to go through in order to keep that pressure system controlled, then it causes the blood pressure to go up. And then you have increased risk of stroke, increased risk of heart attack, because this is your vessel. Then we have people who are eating bad, and then we have cholesterol plaques that develop and deposit around the vessels that's already getting tighter and bigger just to hold all that pressure. That's how you end up with a 55-year-old patient who dies from a heart attack because they have high blood pressure and they have high cholesterol.
Wait, Daniel, question. I noticed you're a little bit shy. You don't want to talk about yourself too much, but since you're on the topic of, like, you know, people who pretty much have bad dietary habits that manifest into, you know, poor health, I feel like in your challenge, and from what I know about you, you keep up with yourself. You try and make sure that that's not the case. Obviously, you're a doctor, so you would hope that you realize that your intake and what you're eating and what you're doing is going to have ripple effects down the line. So how important is that aspect of your life? And do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Diet is really, really important. I think, you know, people have to realize exercise is amazing. It's great. But our diet is what really drives our metabolism, right? So if we are able to consume things that are, you know, one of my attendees, he's a general surgeon. He's like, I weigh myself every day. He says he weighs himself every day. He has a scale in the house, and he weighs himself every day, and he adjusts what he eats during that week based on his weight. He wants to be a particular number. So he goes up and down based on that particular daily scale. That could be something. Sometimes it can psychologically affect people.
That
right?
sounds like a
Right.
lot. That sounds like
That sounds intense.
But for him, he started
A little
doing
too
that.
much for me.
That for him, that has been what he started doing when he hit his goal weight. When he hit the weight that he wanted to reach, in order to prevent himself from gaining more weight or being too skinny, he found a way to weigh himself on a daily basis. Let's say he went to a party the other day, he had a donut or whatever, and he weighs himself and he's a pound more. The next day he eats a salad, he watches his diet, the next day he's a pound down. Or the next 2 days he's a pound down. That was his way of keeping track, right? And it was one of those scales that, that connect to your phone. So he actually had data connected to his phone so he could keep track of it. That was his way. And this guy is 60-something, is one of the most healthiest people I've ever met in my life, right?
Wow.
And what I'm saying is we have to take our health into our hands. We have certain meals that we eat with high salt, high fat content. There are substitutes we can do or take, substitutes that we can use in order for us to avoid having high carb and high cholesterol diets, right? Which is the biggest killers for us, for Black people. Diabetes being a problem, high salt in our foods. We put Maggi in everything. Maggi is salt. You have to stop saying Maggi. I don't put salt in my food. Maggi is salt.
No, really. You can't use both. You have to pick one. That's why. Just use Maggi.
Yeah. In summation, Daniel was just letting you guys know to eat right. Make sure that your diet is on point and pick your vice, Maggi or salt. Don't do both. I mean, that's our opinion, but do whatever you want at the end of the day. But I mean, we were wrapping up anyway. We were kind of winding down with Daniel, sadly. Hopefully we can have him on future episodes to talk about other things besides Corona. If you're down for that, Daniel.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you want to leave us on anything on the medical tip? And then maybe we can ask you a few last questions.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I just want people to take things seriously, stay home, protect yourself, protect your families, and keep protect your mental and physical health.
Right. Well said. Well said. Well, outside of the Don't Rush challenge, have you been doing much on social media to keep yourself, good mentally?
No. I mean, I guess sometimes I kind of like me and my co-residents are pretty close. So I post videos of them and us doing stuff at work. Okay. And, sometimes I do a little bit of education. I like the ultrasound, and so sometimes I play around with the ultrasound on social media and teach people and whatever. And yeah, that's the only thing apart from that. And try to stay active at home, exercise. Okay. I bought some resistant bands, and they've been fun. Pull-up bars in the house. Just different things to keep myself active. I currently work 1 week on, 1 week off, so I'm in the ICU for 1 week and then I'm off 1 week.
Oh, so that's good. Okay.
Good. So it keeps me sane. But it's also very necessary during this time.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. No. Awesome. I need to buy some resistance bands too. I've been lazy, but
yes, Dolapo, you need to stop being lazy.
Now, I need to.
I'm not the spokesperson for Amazon, but
yeah, no, you're right. I'm gonna go in there. It's so hard, man. Working out at home is not. I don't know. It's not fun for me.
It's not as fun. I miss running because I like running, especially.
Yeah.
You can still run. You don't go outside much?
No, I when it comes to outside, I'm not really as one of those people who's really open to going outside. I live downtown Baltimore.
Yeah. You're in the city.
A lot of people around.
A lot of people around, coffee in season, so I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Dolapo, do you have any other questions? I have one last question I want to hit Daniel with.
Okay. Sounds like you have a juicy question. I don't have any juicy questions.
Okay. Here's my juicy question. I have to speak for the women out there. Are your DMs blowing up because of this Don't Rush thing?
Good question.
Don't just giggle. Give me answers.
Yeah, I mean, you get a few people messaging you and stuff, trying to figure out, what's going on. And some people with professional questions, which is always, good to answer. Some not so professional. But yeah, I mean, DM has been popping.
They've been popping. I love it. Yeah. Sounds like you've been indulging a little bit, but that sounds fun. Good for you.
What else is there to do?
I mean, right in this time. All right.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being on, and you definitely taught us a lot. And like we talked about already, we'll try to have you on way more and talk about things other than Corona.
Yeah.
There's
Definitely.
more to you than Corona.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, guys.
Of course.
All right, it's time for shout outs.
That is true. I think we have a joint shout out today, and I'll let you take the lead on it. Dolapo, go ahead. Let them know.
Yes, we do have a shout out. We just want to shout out all the health workers out there, everyone that's on the front lines working in hospitals, senior care facilities. I don't think that's the right way of saying it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Clinics, wherever you work, dealing with the virus on the front lines, putting yourself at risk to take care of people, to treat people, doing research. We'll have to shout out all those people because it is definitely a risk that they're putting themselves, in line of. And we, just appreciate them, especially them, and also all the essential workers out there. We don't ever give them enough credit. Like we talked about, people that work at Walmart and places like that allow us to continue living normal lives to the best of our abilities. Shout out to all of those people. If you're one of them, we thank you and appreciate your work and dedication, and hope that we'll all be out of this crazy time soon so that things can go back to normal.
Agreed.
Yeah, and shout out to you for listening to the episode. Hopefully you like what you heard. Subscribe, like, follow, share, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys. See you next week.